Aloha, everybody, and welcome to Challenge Accepted. I'm Thomas, and I'm here with Frank.
Hey everybody, let's talk about House of the Dragon.
Oh yeah, episode 4, the Red Dragon and the Gold. Man,
Yes.
what a good episode.
Good episode, good name. I think this is the promise that so many people were wanting from the show. Like, where's the dragon on dragon fight? You got it here. And in a very heartbreaking fashion, in my opinion.
Yeah, ooh, it was just brutal all around. I mean, it's just kind of rough on both sides. As they alluded to in the earlier episodes, like, a battle between dragons is the bloodiest of battles. But man, you know what's funny? Like, I think we were kind of talking about it before we fully break this down. It's like, I was so invested in what was going on before this episode. I didn't even know that there was going to be a dragon on dragon battle. And then when I got that, I was like, holy crap. That just felt like a cherry on top. Because everything going on with all the other parts of the family and Rhaenyra and Daemon and Alicent figuring out some things or having to deal with some things. Man, all that was just good by itself. Then you get
It really
dragons.
was. It would have been fine. I was keeping track of the clock and I was like, oh shit, are we going to get it? Oh shit, are we going to get it? And it was like 25 minutes left and we got to the point where like, oh man, they're doing the battle in this one. I was so freaking excited, man. Because I mean, this is unleashed. Now there's no holding back. Like we always thought like, oh, okay, when Luke died, that was probably the initial fight, but they were still trying to hold back the reins a little bit. And no, King is injured now. So let's go ahead and get into the rundown. I have it all written out on the website. So if you guys ever want to just read the review, guys, on the website, welcome to it. I'll get into it right now. I gave it a 10 out of 10. So yeah, in the show notes too. Yeah. All right, so let's go ahead and get started and go. So this is episode 4. It starts off with Daemon waking up. He's dreaming of King's Landing, and he's haunted by the impact he had on young Rhaenyra and his vision for the Iron Throne. He wakes up with blood on his hand. He's in Harrenhal, and he's informed of Criston Cole's aggressive campaign through the Crown Lands but on the behalf of King Aegon, apparently. Then we see Rhaenys, who meets with the shipwright Alan. She recognizes something in him, and then it's kind of obvious that, oh, okay, this is Corlys Valerion's son, my husband's bastard son. And says, like, hey, we should bring him in. He saved you. He's one of your kids. Let's bring him in. And he's, like, just ignoring it. Meanwhile, Alicent is starting to kind of question the legitimacy of Aegon after her conversation with Rhaenyra, and they hint to the fact that she's pregnant with Criston Cole's child, but not after this episode. Tensions are rising on the small council for Rhaenyra. She's not around. There's a lot of bickering. What's nice is Rhaenyra and Corlys comes in and kind of like lays down the hammer, like, guys, stop being children. King Aegon is continuously getting more and more agitated by the fact that he's not a part of any of the conversations going on. He feels like there's the boring conversation, and then Daemon and Criston Cole are doing things behind his back or doing things on his behalf, I guess, without his opinion.
No respect.
Yeah. How much longer do I have?
Let's see. You got 30 seconds.
Okay, perfect. So, and then we see that Criston Cole is now just beheading everybody that will not kneel to the king, showing his dark side and ruthlessness. We'll get into that later on. Finally, they attack Rook's Rest, which makes no sense strategically. And then so Rhaenyra's like, I'll just go nuke him real quick. And Rhaenys is like, no, you stay here. I'll go do it. And she goes, and they're like, surprise, it's a trap. And Vhagar's there. But Vhagar Aemon sees his stupid drunk brother fly over and just like, hey, I want to be participation. And then eventually fight goes down. King gets hurt. Rhaenys dies. Boom. There it is. Yeah. That was, okay, so I want to jump on that real fast. In the book, Vhagar and Aemon and Aegon attack together. It's a joint effort. It's not separate like that. Which is something like I was saying, like it's all about the victor writing the story, so they're not going to make it look like the brother turned on the brother in the story when they're writing it down in the history books,
But you can even see it. You know how they do the kind of trailer for the next week's episode? Like you even see it. They're like, look at the traitor dragon Meleys, slain by our king Aegon. So like they're already pitching it to the people like this was the plan the whole time, So that totally makes a ton of sense. What did you? I don't even want to jump straight into the dragons right away. I want to.
That part was so cool though because
it's
parts. It's such a big change. Yeah. But this episode did a great job of escalating things. Right? What were some of your favorite parts as this thing escalated forward?
Okay, so first starting off with Damon. Like we know that he feels looked down upon. I didn't expect him to be so conflicted, I guess, and to have these emotional kind of things that he would have to work through. It would make sense for all the shit he did, but like if you look at the first season, he's kind of the conqueror himself and he has like no remorse. He's just like white cloaks and just murdering people and seems fine with it. But now it seems like the past is finally catching up to him, and it's like, is he having these visions? Is it his conscience? Is it his guilty conscience? Is it the walls of Harrenhal really, coming back like, the ghosts of Christmas past or something, and I like that they're weaving this in. I like that young Rhaenyra is there too with Millie Alcock. I think that was super really cool way to bring her back. But then when he cuts off her head in that vision, I was like, holy shit, like this guy's losing it, and he doesn't know what to do, and obviously this feels like one of his biggest mistakes. What was your thoughts on that moment with him?
Well, okay, so before we get the answer, we actually get the straight up answer in the conversation with Alice. But yeah, I think he is battling his guilt over what he did to his niece, and also like he's always wanted to be the king, even over his brother. He thought he was a better king than his brother, and that was always a conversation of like, why would you want him around the small council? He wants to take over, and so I think he's always been conflicted about that, and now he's on that cusp where he's like, I could take an action and be the enemy of everybody who's ever loved me, or not. But he talks to Alice Rivers, who is a witch, and she tells him the bed's made out of God's woods, so that's why he's having those dreams. That's the God's woods do that to anyone who sleeps on them. Jaime Lannister in Game of Thrones, same thing happens to him. He sleeps on a root of a God's wood, and he dreams of Brienne of Tarth and like this whole thing with her. So that's just the fact that he's sleeping on that bed is the only thing that's doing all this to him, really. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. I didn't even realize that thing about Jaime Lannister. That makes a ton of sense. It is cool. Like, because it works really well with his character because he has done such bad things in the past too that would make anybody eventually feel bad about it, So that's like, yes, there's that mystical element that, but it also kind of works even if he was just going crazy and his guilt's catching up to him.
It does. And there's the rumors that Harrenhal's haunted. So like, and and even Alice explains like all the horrible things that Harren the Black did to build that place. And so like it bleeds into the fact that like this is cursed. The longer you're here, the more cursed you get. And so he's getting that. And so even if you're just a show watcher, or even if you're a book reader, whatever, it's telling you everything right there with the fact that like, hey, this place is cursed. It's here to tell you why you're cursed. It's much like Luke going into that tree and seeing himself in Darth Vader. It's that kind of thing going on. But yeah, it's
good comparison.
I really like the fact that they kind of science it up a little bit in a weird Game of Thrones version of science, where they're like, "Oh, it's haunted." Right. It's not haunted. It's because it's made out of weirwood, and the weirwood does this to you. So it's kind of like the haunted aspect of it is just you're all sniffing lead, and so that'll make that happen to you, kind of thing like that, So
yeah. It's like the Game of Thrones version of like ayahuasca if you didn't have a shaman.
Exactly. And it's funny you say that because the Northmen do it on purpose. And that's very much like the people who knew ayahuasca well did it on purpose. Yeah. So,
yeah. Huh. There you go. We also see that Alicent is conflicted, right? We know why, that she's pregnant. And also that she is asking the Maester, who is probably close to King Viserys, what did you think he wanted? Even more so now questioning what she thought was right, which was, I got to put my son on the throne. And I love that this conversation that she had with Rhaenyra in the last episode is really affecting the way that she thinks about all of her actions leading up from when Rhaenyra should have taken over and her putting Aegon on the throne. It's really conflicting her.
Yeah, Orwell is like very trusted, right? He's always given like real level counsel. So like he was around when you guys watched in first season. He was there when the dad was there and stuff like that. So she's thinking like, hey, he's going to be honest, but I think he's just trying to protect his own neck. He doesn't know what dragon's going to be landing in King's Landing next. So he's just like, hey, I don't know, boss, but he was there when Rhaenyra was promised. Yeah.
Right. But he could have easily said like, nope. I think he chose Aegon, but he doesn't. And I respect that. It's like, he's protecting his neck, but it also feels like he is still being an honorable counsel. You know what I mean? Like he's still giving her the truth, and how many people in King's Landing would have been like, no, he totally meant Aegon just to truly save their own necks. That's
Right.
why I really liked that scene, and it adds more to her being conflicted. I thought that was a really strong character choice, and plus we saw how much of her desires has really taken a hold of her, and how much it's affected with her, and she's trying to like hide it now by taking that potion, and Larry Strong picks up on it. And I thought, dang, like he is so observant. He really knows what's going on. And more so, like, she doesn't really have anybody that's got her back. Her dad's not there. Her son is just worried about himself and his legacy and how he looks. Sir Kristen Cole is basically abandoning her because he's like, I can't play politics. I got to get out of here. She's really, I think, the most alone she's ever been in the series so far.
You are so absolutely right. And you make a really great point there, because he is one of those councilmen that's just like, hey, this is what we do the whole time. We're not aggressive with our politics. And to a crazy degree, Tywin Lannister is also kind of like not super aggressive in comparison to how the Targaryens are acting right now. And later on, when she has that conversation with Aegon, she's telling him, like, you should be listening to your grandfather and to me. Like, we got you here. And instead you're listening to idiot King's Guards that you put in, your brother who's just toying with you, and Kristen Cole who's just like giving you everything you want. Like, you're listening to the wrong people, and she, I think, is also kind of mirroring that onto herself. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that conversation because she's the only person that could say that to Aegon. Yeah. And he says it after, like, the actor who portrays him basically says, like, he still really wants his mom's validation. But that part, man, I just love that because it's like nobody can put you in your place like your mom.
Oh,
you know
course,
what I mean?
yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter if you're the king of the free world, you know, it's like mom knows you, and mom really wants the best for you. And she tells him flat out, like, the best thing you can do is just listen to the people who know more than you and stay out of the way and do nothing. And because he has that ego and he wants to prove himself, you know, like you were saying with Sir Kristen Cole and with Aemon, he screws himself in the end. And oh man, I just loved that conversation so much. I thought that was fantastic.
I got to give a lot of props to how they're writing King Aegon, and they're making a character that I normally wouldn't. And it's okay. Tom Glenn Carney is the actor's name. They're making a character I typically wouldn't care about. Actually, compassionate or not compassionate. I am like empathetic.
Yeah. Totally.
So I feel the pain that he's feeling, and the same thing goes actually for Aemon. Although he's cruel in many ways, you can almost kind of feel like the reasoning behind, like, yeah, you might want to attack your brother a little bit. I kind of get that, you know. He's never been nice to you. So yeah, there's something there for sure.
There is, and they're kind of doing this really cool thing of like mirroring different characters, where Rhaenyra and Aegon have like these weird counterpoints to it. They both don't really know if they're doing things for the right way, I guess. They think they're doing it for the right reasons, but they're not. They don't know if they're doing it for the right way. And simultaneously, we have Aemon and Daemon, and they seem like counterpoints where they're both can be brutal and unmerciful in their killing and stuff, and yet they feel guilty for some of the actions that they've already done. And so, like, man, do I love the mirroring from both sides that they're doing in the show. But I think Aegon, that actor, is doing a fantastic job because he just feels like the guy who's over his head, and yet he's supposed to be he's in the position. He has the job, and yet he doesn't feel equipped for it. And he wants to feel like he's the right person for the job, but nobody respects him enough. It's really well done.
And I want to add on one more mirror that I really like too, Otto Hightower and Rhaenys, because both of them should have been in charge. Since day one. Yeah. She's called the queen who never was, and he basically ran 3 kings. He's actually Jaehaerys' hand first, Viserys' hand next, and then was Aegon's hand. So he was 3, and was an era of peace up until the fact that, and up until the day he left, and then all of a sudden war breaks out. So like those two should have been in charge, and also are kind of like the best counsel behind their respective leader.
That's true, and I can't wait to see him. Like, you definitely know reading the books where he's at, but I'm like, where the heck is this dude? You know, it's like we kind of got his son in place who's on the mission with Sir Kristen Cole, but I'm like, no, Otto Tower's somewhere out here. He's not like completely chilling. Like, there's something going on, but they haven't showed him yet. But I can't wait to get him back because I think things are gonna change once he comes back.
I'll just hint at that there's a third brother. It's not just Aemon and Daemon. Oh. There's another one.
Got it.
So, and then, okay, so Kristen Cole, he's on this hell-bent mission to make sure everybody's loyal to King Aegon. And we're seeing him just behead these lords that are not kneeling. And by the way, this is the Crown Land, so it's all real small, petty people. None of these guys matter. And
the small folk. The small folks here.
They're like upgraded small. Yeah, small folk are literally the poor people. These guys are like, okay, you're King Poor Pearson. And so, but I think there's something to it where, like having that, kind of brother-in-law almost hanging out with him. He's almost delightful in the way he's just killing off lords. Like, I was a Dorne, and then I fought for the Baratheons, and I kind of fought my way up, and now I'm killing these guys that are born into it and stuff. So he's just a little too vengeful. And that's why I like, at the last part of this, he sees the wasteland that the dragons created, and it was like, I unleashed this shit. So that's not great. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and again, it must be so hard for you to not spoil too much for me, because I'm like, does he feel bad about this after? Like, clearly at the end of this episode, he's like, holy crap, I did this. That was a dumb move. I shouldn't have pushed this hard. And look what's happened. I've like ruined my king, and all these men have died. Like, it's like, hopefully he would be a little remorseful at the end of his, but I don't know. He's kind of just been this dick, and it's like, does he have to continue to be this to show strength? I think that might be the only way he knows how to show strength, because he didn't grow up with being highborn, so he doesn't have that instinctual I'm better than anybody. So the way you do that is to like try to suppress everybody around you, and he's kind of just being that bully. I'm not saying it's a good reason, but I guess I can understand maybe that's why he's doing it,
Not just highborn too, he's from Dorne, so and that's unique to the show, but that means that he was on the enemy side first. Like, he was like a traitor to his people. So like, the Dorne people are a little bit darker skinned because they're from the south. They're supposed to be kind of like Spaniard or Egyptian relative to that. So like, he looks a little different than everybody around him, so they treat him worse, and it's a shame. But so like, you kind of get that too. Like, he's fought his way up the entire time.
Yeah, was that like Pedro Pascal in like
same place?
Yep. Okay, got it. Yeah.
All the sand vipers and stuff.
Like North African, like Middle Eastern type of vibe to it, right? Yeah. Okay, that's cool. That makes a ton of sense. Yeah, and man, he's brutal though. And I liked though the one lord that he ends up beheading is still like, I'm not gonna, you should be ashamed of what you're doing, and I know there's deep down, even though Sir Criston Cole in front of all those hundreds, maybe thousands of people is like, I don't care if you're not gonna kneel, I'm gonna make you kneel, and that line got to him though. There's got to be a piece of him that just hates that, where he's like, did I betray my oath? Am I doing the wrong thing? Like, I don't know. He's doing an amazing job. Shout out to that actor who's unfairly getting a bunch of BS on online, because he's actually crushing it. But he's crushing it because you hate him.
And that's oh God, let's not get into it. But yeah, the comment section, or just it's so terrible for absolutely no reason. It's a shame. He's doing a good job if you hate him. Like, that's exactly what you're supposed to be doing with this character.
Oh yeah,
and yeah,
he's crushing.
I won't go into spoilers, but yeah. Then I want to move into intention, which I think is so important in this. Like I had to just explode out and say in the beginning of our little analysis here, is the fact that this entire time we're seeing Aemon kind of antagonize Aegon. There's the conversation they had in Valerian, which I thought was masterfully done. Clearly,
that was good.
Yeah, it shows that Aemon is a learned man, someone who's been studying and working to become king, the best fighter up to Daemon. Like, him and Daemon are the two best fighters in the realm. Like, it's just, he's clearly like, I'm going to be king someday. Meanwhile, you got the drunk guy that was just born first. And so when he's like speaking Valerian in like the smooth, constant tone, and then Aegon comes back with him like kind of broken Valerian, like he's trying to find the biblioteca. And you could tell, like, even the people in the room that don't speak Valerian are like, oh, that wasn't right. You know what I'm saying? Like, you didn't do that right. It didn't sound like the poetry. So, yeah.
Right. But like the way he's delivering the line too, like everything he says, he's not blinking. He's staring at him. He's confident. Like, Aegon doesn't feel confident about anything. And then, then you take Aemon, and then he goes to the board and then just starts, this is why you do this. This is why we take what is called Rook's Rest, right? Yes. This is why we don't care about Harrenhal. And like, God, he is Sister Sage and he's Homelander in one person, and Aegon is like Huey. Like, he's just trying to find his footing.
The deep.
Yeah. Exactly. He has some power, but
it's not that much. But even their posture, Aegon's leaning forward. He's bored. He's restless, and you see Daemon is almost got like I think he sometimes has like a leg cocked up on one of the armrests. He's just like leaning back, like he's comfortable in this setting. Speaking of that plan, though, when Aegon's like, "This doesn't make any sense. Why are we not going for Harrenhal?" It doesn't make sense, actually. He shouldn't be going for Rook's Rest. It's a useless thing. And not to be the guy that keeps bringing up the books, I'm going to keep saying that. But in the books, at this point, Aegon is extremely frustrated. Not so much because of everything that's going on, because he thinks he's losing the war. Because Rhaenyra has the Starks on her side and the Vale on her side. And now Harrenhal. So he's like, we have to take away one of the big three. Who cares about the little guys? But what Aegon is saying, like, that little guy is very easy to attack from Dragonstone and is one of her councilmen. So they'll just fly over, try to nuke us real quick, and then we get Vhagar going. So like it's a trap, but he's not telling Aegon it's a trap, so Aegon doesn't know. And Aegon's like, why are you not taking out one of the three major things she just took from us?
Because that was very much a surprise when we get to the battle and Aemon and Vhagar are there. I was like, holy crap. But if you know the subtext and you know the books, you know that he's in on the trap too going forward. That's pretty cool.
Aemon is, and Vhagar actually, Aegon is as well, but Aegon is so frustrated with the fact that, like, he's not frustrated because he's, like, not being participating. He's frustrated because he's losing this war pretty soundly, actually. So that's why he's mad at this point in the story, is because, like we had mentioned in the very beginning, the very first episode of this season, we talked about, like, oh, they just got the Starks. That's big. Oh, they're sending dragons to the Vale. That's big, because that's the two big houses in Game of Thrones. You remember the Starks and Catelyn. Catelyn's from the Vale. Like, those are two of the big houses that the Baratheons secured to take out the Targaryens altogether. You know, and they actually get the Lannisters too in that moment. But yeah.
Yeah, so from somebody who hasn't read the books, it feels to me that the Blacks are losing. Like, they have the right, like, Rhaenyra has the rightful throne, like the claim to the throne, but it does feel like they're losing. From the show, it very much feels like the Greens have all the power.
See, that's so wonky. Yeah, just to jump in real quick, it's like they're trying to not spend too much money, because, like, right now, I'm not going to say much because they might actually bring him in, but right now, trust me, the Blacks are actually winning this thing. And I think it's because there's twists that are coming up and they want it to be more impactful by keeping it looking like this. So it might be budgetary. It might be because they're trying to twist the narrative to make it more impactful.
Yeah. Or again, the books are the history, right? And the history is written by the winners, right? So maybe this is actually how it was going. But I like that because it doesn't feel like that to me, just as somebody who's just watching the show. So it's cool. I dig it. I love that we get to this moment. Rhaenyra comes back and she tells her council that, hey, you know where I was? I was actually talking to Alicent. They're like, you were doing what? Yeah. And her son, is it Jaehaerys? Just Jaehaerys? Because I think his little,
they just call him
little
Jace.
brother, or is it Lucerys?
Yeah. No, that's just Jaehaerys.
But I love that he's feeling more and more compelled to, like, I have to do something. And I think it's cool. He's very honorable. He reminds me of like Robb Stark, or, one of the Stark older siblings in a sense. Mm-hmm. And I like that side of it. But I like that Rhaenyra comes back and has to kind of explain to everybody where she was. Everybody thinks it's a bad idea. But when she explains, my father ruled over the longest running time of peace. My goal is to keep the peace. Yeah. And that's why I was there. And it's just really well done. I feel like I'm not overuse that term, but it does just make a ton of sense. And it's like, how can anybody else, go against that? Because if you go to war and it's all at war, so many people are going to die. Of course, she should try to look for the option of peace. Yeah.
And then, wonderfully done by a very talented actress, Rhaenys steps up and says, you got to stay here. I got to go. And even the way she, like, puts on her armament and she goes and stands next to a dragon and says, we have to go to battle again, old girl, and stuff like that. Like, the bond between those two, which, by the way, that bond between those two, the way it's amplified later on in this episode, heartbreaking. But then you have the mirror to that is Aegon drunk. He's getting over there. He's putting on somebody else's armor. His basically the way he reacts to his dragon walking up is not a companionship. It's like, oh, my favorite puppy's here, yay! Which, by the way, that dragon is gorgeous, right? The golden scales on it.
Sunfire, yeah. Oh, so beautiful. Yeah, the way they do the dragon. Actually, the dragon I think is the most hideous, but it's probably because it's the oldest. Is Vhagar? Like I don't think Vagar's a good looking dragon, but he's so big and he's so old and he's seen so much battle, I guess, that but it, God, I love Sunfire is just a gorgeous dragon, but then Meleese too. And you're right, that bond between them, they're like, it goes beyond like pet and human. It's like we're friends, we're family, and you get that from her and Meleese. So cool.
And then speaking to Vhagar, so we have this battle happening, and we see, Aegon gets into it. We talked about this already. Rhaenys is just burning people and doing her job. She doesn't necessarily want to, but she has to. She did kill a lot of people in season 1, by the way. But I love when Vhagar does show up, the way they have just his wings peek out over the tree line, and everybody turns to me like, this is a problem. And it's just like, they make sure, like the camera angles and like that, to make sure Vhagar is the monster on the battlefield.
Yeah, but it also surprised the crap out of me because you see Sir Criston Cole's army going, and they're like, we're going to attack now. And you're like, okay, why is he trying to force it? This is not a good strategy. I'm not familiar with Alicent's brother's name, but he's there, and he's like, we shouldn't do this. And then so they start charging forward. They're just getting shot up by arrows. And you're like, what is the plan? Like, just to keep sending waves of men and for them to get mowed down until they run out of arrows? And then you see like the 2 signal arrows go up in the air, and you see the wings kind of beyond the tree line kind of go up, and you're like, oh my God. That surprised the crap out of me. I was like, holy shit, Vhagar's there. I know that Meleese is on the way. I know Rhaenys is on the way. And dude, it surprised the crap out of me. I thought that was so cool. But then also, I know that Sunfire is coming. And then before Vhagar can get in the mix, then Sunfire and Meleese are battling. And it's really aunt and nephew battling. And dude, and he just shows. I loved it because right off the bat, you see how skilled Meleese is as a fighter, and also how confident Rhaenys is as a fighter too, and how Aegon, like you were saying, is just this drunk a-hole kid who's like, I got a dragon, I got this, but he's way outmatched. That was so good.
And I love how, again, this is a change, but when he sees Sunfire flying over him, Aemon just kind of like, idiot. And he's in Valyrian, by the way, which is another, like, that's cool. And then he settles the dragon back down. He settles Vhagar back down. Like, let's let my brother take a few knocks first. And then when he has the opportunity to, and, Aegon looks over like, oh, thank the gods, my brother's here. And that's not the case. Daemon attacks both. He attacks both, and we see Sunfire and King Aegon plummet to the ground and crash into the forest, starting a fire over in the forest. And then it's Vhagar versus Meleese. I mean, it's such a beautiful battle. Yeah. And by the way, Rhaenys almost like so cool, compelled to continue fight. She had a chance to run away a couple times.
Yeah.
But she's like, I gotta do this. I have to do this for Rhaenyra, for my realm, because I can't make it faster than Vhagar. There's something there that's compelling, and I just love that.
Yeah, it's just honor. And I think it's like, I am more skilled. It's like I've seen more battle. I'm a better dragon rider. My dragon and me have a better connection. And rightfully so. Like if kind of Vhagar doesn't go down and kind of hide for a second, dude, she probably wins. You know what I mean? But then she's flying back after she had done a bunch of other stuff. And, it's so out of nowhere, just like the end of the season, like last season with Aemond and Lucerys. So, like, dude, it was, oh, man. And I knew exactly, as her and Meleese were flying over that castle, I was like, she's done. That's it. She's done. It just the angle, the way it was shot, I was like, she's screwed. But man, those battles were so cool. I didn't even think about when they get scratched open, right? As Meleese is scratching open Sunfire, the blood itself is like acid and it burns, and it's like, holy dude, it is crazy.
Yeah. Okay, so a couple things. First off, I've heard already people discussing, why are the dragons fighting each other themselves? Isn't it like mother-daughter and stuff like that all the time? The dragons are bonded to their riders. So in the books they talk about how like the green and the black dragons before the war even breaks out, as tensions are rising, are snapping at each other all the time. So it's like, oh, okay, so they already don't like each other, and so they're that bonded to their owner. And in that moment when Rhaenys is flying, and you can see she's like, I might pass out up here, and you see her dragon look back at her like, what do you want to do? You know, and it's kind of that final moment, and she has her turn back. It's like they both agree, like, we're gonna die right now.
Straps in.
Yeah,
she puts she puts the extra hook in the saddle.
Doesn't that feel like it's like, hey, this is a kamikaze mission. We just have to try to do what we can. Like, we're not gonna win this any other way. So I just felt like she was just like, this is it, and she just goes for it. Okay, never mind. Oh boy, you know.
There was like you're like, I want to say something, but that might be too much of a spoiler.
So much.
Okay.
It's important. It's important that you remember things you're seeing in this episode. I'll just say that. It's important to remember everything that you're seeing on screen. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's so good how they set up this episode, because it's one of those episodes you do want to go back and watch multiple times to catch every little detail. Again, everything we talked about even before the dragon battle. But like, yeah, the dragons come up when Meleys and Vhagar are gripped onto each other and they're spinning and they're just shooting fire at each other. Like, all of that was just like, holy shit! Like, how are they dodging each other? Yes, but there is that moment of like, this is where we either win this and we destroy our nephews, or we die, you know, or we go out in a blaze of glory. And not quite in a blaze of glory, but basically having her kid basically in Meleys die, you know, by Vhagar was just like heart-wrenching. Oh my God. The look in Rhaenys' face, shout out to that actress, because holy shit, like, you could just feel her heart sink. And my heart sank too as Meleys gets her neck chomped and
turns to look at her one more time
out.
And she's like, I'm dead. Yeah. And then Rhaenys falls, and she's just kind of like, she opens her arms out, just be like, you know, this is it. And Eve Best is the actor's name. Yeah.
What, Eve Best?
Eve Best, yeah, because what a wonderful job, and I will be making sure to pay attention to anything else she does from here on out for sure.
Oh my gosh, she's so good, so good.
One of the things that we haven't talked about, I think it's kind of the point of this entire series actually, is while all this cool stuff's happening and we're looking up into the skies, countless are dying on the floor, and even when Rhaenys falls and crashes, she crashes into the freaking castle she was supposed to protect, and the wall goes down and they just walk in. So it's like absolutely everybody did something stupid, and all the people that were there doing their job just died. I mean, a lot of them did. And I think Kristen Cole waking up on the battlefield and seeing the victims, I think it might start registering to him like, this is not good. You know, this is we're gonna be in the wake of these dragons. We're never actually gonna be in charge of anything.
Right. Yeah, I can't remember if this is something they also said in the post recap video that they do, but it's like he sees that when it comes to a battle between dragons, it's like soldiers on the ground mean nothing.
No.
You know, it's like when it's one-on-one, that's, you know, it seems like a big deal. But when you have the opportunity to wipe out hundreds at a time, thousands at a time, like, what's one soldier on the battlefield? And you just kind of throwing all these people to slaughter, knowing that you're going to bring a dragon in. It's like, you have immense power that you don't even realize, and that you're just kind of throwing willy-nilly out there. And it's very, very sad on how you just kind of expense life with all these other soldiers. I think they really got that point across in this episode.
I want to add, this is going to be a spoiler, but it's a very small spoiler, and I think it's important for our conversation here.
No, please. Yeah,
Sunfire and Keegan are clearly very damaged. Sunfire can't fly after this. She has to heal. And so Kristen Cole has been protecting her, protects her while she heals, which takes a very long time. But what they do is they just drag all the soldiers that died to her so she could eat them. That's how they're feeding her. It's just with dead bodies. So these men that would normally be giving the burial of the seven or, the old gods and stuff like that are just being fed to the dragon, just like dragging their friends to this dragon to keep it fed. And it's just like, it doesn't matter what armor they wore when they fell. We got to feed that dragon. It's the king's dragon. And they just keep throwing bodies to it. And eventually, once they feed it the entire onslaught, they start taking the sheep and the cows of the area and just feeding it to the dragon and making people starve because they don't have livestock anymore. And it's just like this dragon that can't even fly is just consuming everything around it. And it's like, that is a damn metaphor right there. Yeah.
Right. Just to feed the weapon. rather than like the people you're supposed to protect with the weapon. Man, you're right. What a metaphor. Damn. Yeah, I appreciate that spoiler. That's the kind of spoiler
I don't know if they'll even show that in the show, but I think it's a really important
might
part
not.
of, yeah. So
yeah, exactly. That's why that just feels like context for the way that the kingdom look at dragons, the way that this knight looks at the dragons, or this world. Basically, it's like who's more important? It should be the people that you govern, not the weapons used to protect the people. So yeah, well said. Dang, man, this was such a good episode. It had so much meat in this one, and there's so much good character moments along with the action. This is something that Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, again, I don't know if we said this when we started recording, but it's like there's no show that can give me this feeling where I'm like covering my mouth and I'm so floored and it's surprising the hell out of me, and yet I'm like stunned by the cool action. Like, God, this show is so good.
The acting, the dialogue, just the cinematography, absolutely everything. It is a cinema experience every Sunday night, and I love that. I didn't even wait for you, honestly, for our challenge accepted score. I threw it out right away. I was like 5 stars. I'm sorry, I'll have to fight it if I have to.
That's all
but
good.
what would you like to actually give this? What was your
No,
score?
I'm gonna give it a 5-star too.
Okay,
Absolutely.
good, because I couldn't wait. I was like 5 stars for that bad boy. That was really amazing.
We're getting some great TV lately. I mean, I feel like The Boys was the same way for me, and but this was a different level. You're right. Like, this feels like a movie, and it just no expense feels like it feels spared in any of these episodes. It just wow, so good.
I kind of want to go back to that freshman in high school myself who is just discovering the Fellowship of the Rings and then goes and buys the Two Tower books and then buys Return of the King, and just tell him like, hey, buy Song of Ice and Fire right now. Get ahead of this. Yeah. And because I'm telling you, you're about to be invested in a world more than any other fandom. I think, you actually like read up the most on this one. And it's just like, when I was a kid, I know I'm older than you. Like geek culture just was completely not accepted, right? And so I mean, it wasn't
cool. It was like
we all met in the band room essentially. Yeah. And so the fact that like now it's just like, God, we have a plethora of we have a superhero show, a Star Wars show, and a fantasy show that are the biggest budget shows possible right now. And it's like, yes, that's so cool.
Yeah, and like the shirt you're wearing, we had a tremendous X-Men show. We're getting a tremendous new X-Men movie coming out this month.
Yes. Like, by the way, guys, I own other shirts. I know this is like the shirt that's like becoming a Geek Freaks Network joke at this point. I have many other shirts. It's just a good shirt.
That's an awesome shirt. I know. I need one myself. But you one thing quickly before we wrap this up is like you mentioned the Song of Ice and Fire, and I love it. Was so brief, but I think it means a lot. Is that Rhaenyra tells Lucerys? I always get Jacaerys.
Just call him
Lucerys.
Jace. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but she tells Jace about the Song of Ice and Fire. So now somebody else knows the story. I love that. I think that's going to be that's going to come into play and be very important down the line.
I don't know if I've ever mentioned it before. This is one of my favorite things about this whole thing is, again, the show is actually what actually happened and the books are not. Nobody in the books knows about the Song of Ice and Fire. All of that is not known because it's only told to Viserys, Rhaenyra, Jace, it'll be Aegon the Younger. Like, it's only told to one line. So, of course, the people who wrote the history books didn't know what the hell the Targaryens were fighting for or, like, what they were preparing for. I love that about the show. Yeah, that's it. They just like, it was just that. So it's just cool that like the books are like, yeah, this is it. I don't know.
It's cool. Yeah, it's like it gives you context in other ways and still leaves space for them to expand on in the show.
Yeah.
It's so smart. So
even
smart.
That dagger,
so well done.
Which, by the way, Aemon makes sure to pick up. He went up to his brother's, what he would probably assume dying body, and just picks up the dagger and walks away. He knows how important, he knows that the dagger is Valyrian steel. That's more important than anything else. And like, in the books wise, that dagger first pops up when Joffrey gives it to, they call it the cat's paw dagger. He gives it to this cat's paw thief to kill Bran in the first episode of Game of Thrones, or first 1 or 2 episodes. That's this dagger that eventually becomes the one that kills the Night King. So again, in the show, it's like, holy shit, that dagger had a big old context dump that we didn't know about before that. So it's really cool that we're learning about that too.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
man. Yeah. They're amazing writing all around. Yeah, this show's so good. But yeah, to be determined, I guess, on how this affects things moving forward. Again, I'm sure you have a better idea, but I think that was a very cool, powerful moment that was really subtle and could be overlooked in this episode.
Yeah, I obviously I geek out pretty hard over this. I'm trying to chill out a little bit, guys. I'm sorry. This is my jam. I freaking love it so much. I'm literally like, as soon as the episode finishes, before we start recording, I'm already on the forums. I'm already watching the live streams where everybody's discussing things and stuff like that because I'm into it. So, but yeah, this is cool.
Yeah, I'm sure that's how I sounded for X-Men '97. But here we are, and that was a fun journey, and this has been amazing as well. Gosh, I love this show.
By the way, speaking of X-Men 97, on the Joystick Show and on Geek Freaks, you can listen to our joint interview with AJ Lacasio, which was fantastic, where we got to talk about him voicing Gambit and Han Solo and all kinds of Crudes, all kinds of different characters. So check that out, guys. The Joystick Show, challenge accepted, links in the description. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for joining us. Our next one is going to be The Acolyte that comes out on Tuesday. That's the penultimate episode. So let's see how they're going to wrap up this story. All right, guys. Bye.
Yay. Aloha.